We're going on a wild ride through the swirling sands of cinematic history. Picture this, the year is 1984, hair is big, music is synth-laden, and Hollywood is still reeling from the impact of Star Wars. Enter David Lynch, fresh off the mind-bending weirdness of Eraserhead and The Elephant Man. Someone, perhaps under the influence of some very potent spice, thinks he's the perfect guy to adapt Frank Herbert's legendary sci-fi epic, Dune. The result? A cult classic so strange, so mesmerising, weird, unusual, and somehow good, that it defies simple categorisation. So get ready for some appalling pronunciation of Dune's characters by yours truly. But before we get there, let's look at how Dune was received on release. Dune was a notorious commercial and critical flop upon its release in 1984. Critics slammed its convoluted plot, rushed pacing, and deviations from the source material. Lynch himself disowned the film due to studio interference that compromised his original vision. Yet despite its initial rejection, the film slowly evolved into a beloved cult classic. Dune stands out with its visually arresting style that is pure, unfiltered Lynch. This unique aesthetic blend of industrial grotesquerie, unsettling body horror, and baroque opulence clashes with the traditional tropes of science fiction. Additionally, elements considered campy or excessive, like the bizarre inner monologues and over-the-top costumes, have become endearing hallmarks of the film's odd charm. A devoted community of fans developed around Dune, drawn to its weirdness and Lynch's singular vision. The film's labyrinthine lore, quotable dialogue, and memorable imagery inspire intense analysis and debate. Extended cuts, fan edits, and documentaries continue to delve into the film's troubled yet fascinating production history and artistic choices. Time has softened critical perspective on Lynch's Dune. While still acknowledged as flawed, the film is increasingly appreciated for its risk-taking ambition and visual audacity. In a cinematic landscape often focused on homogenization, Dune is a truly bizarre outcast. While never mainstream, its status as a cult classic ensures its survival as a unique piece of filmmaking that remains fascinating, confounding, and oddly beloved. You can tell that this was a passion project for everyone involved. I keep coming back to this movie and always end up leaving with a, I'm not quite sure why I came back, although the soundtrack by Toto is pretty stellar. I always have a lot of fun with this movie though, but I've never truly understood its unique, if somewhat Marmite appeal. But let's look at the overall visuals. Lynch's vision is like a fever dream inspired by a broken lava lamp and set to a prog rock soundtrack. Everything is grimy and decaying, a collision of baroque architecture and industrial machinery. The once noble House Atreides look like they rolled out of bed and raided a 16th century wardrobe for their costumes. As for the villainous Harkonnens, well, let's just say their idea of power suit is part medieval torture device, part zit-covered pizza. Baron Harkonnen himself, played by Kenneth Macmillan, floats around like a malevolent balloon, dripping sweat and evil in equal measure. Then there's the technology. Forget sleek spaceships, and Lynch's Dune characters fold space by shouting into tubes. The fearsome Fremen warriors wield sonic weapons that look like glorified electric toothbrushes. And oh yes, the infamous weirding modules. It takes serious effort to make deadly sonic weaponry look more uncomfortable than asbestos underwear laced with itching powder, and all brought together with a "what have you been smoking" steampunk belt. Now about that plot, Herbert's Dune is a masterpiece of world building and political intrigue, a web of competing factions fighting for control of the spice melange, a substance that makes interstellar travel possible and grants psychic powers. Lynch's approach to this complex narrative is like trying to stuff a sandworm through a hula hoop. Important scenes whiz by in a flash, punctuated by characters whispering their inner thoughts with all the subtlety of a foghorn. In the distant future, the universe is controlled by the Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV, played by Jose Ferrer, doing his best to channel Ming the Merciless, but with less camp panache. The most precious substance in the cosmos is spice, a mind-altering drug harvested only on the desert planet Arrakis. It grants psychic abilities, extends life, and makes those space voyages possible. It's magic space crack that fuels empires. The movie kicks off with a helpful montage where a disembodied princess whispers an exposition dump at you. We learn that spice is important, a saviour is prophesied, and oh yeah, a bunch of factions are fighting over everything. Got that? Great, because things are about to get real complicated, real fast. Enter Duke Leto Atreides, Jurgen Prochnow, a surprisingly chill dad considering the fate of the galaxy rests on his shoulders. The Emperor, fearing Leto's growing popularity, assigns him to take over Arrakis from the grotesquely evil Harkonnens. Little does Leto suspect he's walking into a trap designed to wipe out his entire family. Cut to young Paul Atreides, Karma McLachlan, who spends most of the movie looking worried and having prescient dreams that involve a mysterious blue-eyed desert girl named Chani, Sean Young. Oh, and he might just be the Kwisatz Haderach, a desert messiah the entire universe has been waiting for. No pressure, love, and I did tell you I'd murder those names. Meanwhile, in the Harkonnen camp, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen Kenneth Macmillan gleefully plots with his disturbingly pale nephews, the murderous Fade Rather, a perpetually sneering Sting, and the disturbingly large Rabban, Paul L. Smith. These guys are about as subtle as a tremor beastie breaching your living room floor. In Lynch's Dune, character arcs aren't so much arcs as erratic doodles. And the climax? Strap in, because it's going to get even stranger. Betrayal, space battles, giant sandworms. Just when you think the film can't get any weirder, things somehow escalate exponentially. Paul drinks the water of life, turning his eyes pure blue. Suddenly he can control the weather, rally the Fremen to his cause, and even ride a monstrous sandworm like a cosmic surfboard. Oh, and did I mention it starts raining on Arrakis for the first time in forever? Yes, you heard that right. The final confrontation between Paul and Fade Rather involves sonic underwear weapons, cheesy special effects, and a rather ridiculous climax. Paul defeats his enemy, the Harkonnens are decimated, and in a twist no one saw coming, it magically starts raining on the desert planet. The cast deserve a whole essay themselves. Carl MacLachlan's Paul Atreides looks less like the prophet of a desert people and more like a bewildered 80s catalogue model who took a wrong turn to Arrakis. His mother, Lady Jessica, Francesca Annis, does most of her acting with her eyebrows, which rise and fall with enough frequency to give anyone whiplash. As for the iconic villain, Fade Rather, played by a manic Sting, his look is pure 80s glam rock nightmare. Flame red hair, gravity-defying, a metal codpiece that wouldn't be out of place in a Motley Crue video, and enough eyeliner to make a goth raccoon jealous. So let us fast forward to Denis Villeneuve's 2021 adaptation of Dune and attempt the seemingly impossible. No, I haven't been at the Spice, we're going to do a comparison. Villeneuve's take is awe-inspiring. Sweeping desert landscapes, majestic sandworms, and the world feels believable, if bland. It's like going from a muddy local production of Dune to a multi-million-dollar Broadway show. But here's the thing. Villeneuve's version, while visually stunning and narratively tighter, lacks the sheer audacity of Lynch's creation. There's no Sting in a cosmic nappy, no whispered internal monologues, bordering on self-parody. It's the difference between a perfectly crafted sandcastle and the one that weird kid built and decorated with dead crabs and discarded straws. There's some sort of charm to the latter. Let's start with the plot. Villeneuve treats Herbert's novel like a sacred cookbook, following the narrative recipe step by step. With him, you get measured ingredients, a careful simmer, and, well, maybe a bit too much time spent lovingly stirring the broth. Lynch, on the other hand, uses the book as a springboard for culinary chaos. He chucks the plot in a blender, adds fistfuls of exposition powder, and hits puree. Forget a cohesive recipe, you get a chunky smoothie of archetypes whizzing past at light speed, all seasoned with the narration that feels like you're in a monologue gone haywire. Visually, it's desert grandeur versus a carnival funhouse. Villeneuve paints Arrakis as a majestic sand trap, where giant spaceships make people look like ants, emphasising just how tiny we are in this cutthroat universe. Meanwhile, Lynch takes us on a tour of his fever dream, where pugs in spacesuits totally make sense. Costumes rival a Renaissance fair on acid, and baddies drip more cartoon villainy than genuine menace. Villeneuve aims for an awe-inspiring epic. Lynch delivers a space opera on an out-of-tune organ while wearing a particularly flamboyant cape. Let's talk themes. Imagine those big ideas about colonialism and messiahs hidden in Herbert's novel like tasty figs beneath the sand. Villeneuve carefully unearths them, serving thoughtful commentary wrapped in spectacular visuals. Lynch goes in with a shovel, tosses a few fig bits in the air and focuses on how pretty they look against Baron Harkonnen's oozing pustules. Subtlety? That's for those boring desert worms to enjoy. Even stuff like Weirding Way, that mind-bending martial voice thingy, feels different. With Villeneuve, it's an undercurrent of menace. Whispers that can shatter shields. With Lynch, it's 80s hair metal screams weaponised into cheesy sonic blasts. One director respects the source material like a revered spice blend. Well, sort of. The other grinds it up and mixes it into a potent hallucinogenic drink. Finally, consider the overall experience. Villeneuve's Dune is a carefully constructed 7-course meal. Complex, filling, and with a cliffhanger for dessert, because apparently splitting books into movies is trendy now. Lynch's version is like wandering a chaotic spice market. You'll see stuff you've never dreamed of, get unexpectedly spritzed with weird liquids, and probably leave with a headache, a few questionable souvenirs, and the desperate desire to wash the whole experience down with something that won't give you prophetic visions. So there you have it. Dune as a gourmet dish versus Dune as an experimental art project gone cosmic. Neither version is the wrong way to experience Herbert's universe, but be warned, one comes with clear directions, the other with a strong suggestion to leave your sanity at the door. Remember, on Arrakis the spice always flows, but understanding what in the desert you just watched, well, that's totally up to you. Lynch's Dune is a glorious failure, a film that crashes and burns spectacularly but leaves you mesmerised by the wreckage. It's a testament to ambition, to the sheer madness of tackling such a complex source material, and to the strange and wonderful ways a movie can go gloriously off the rails. For anyone craving a truly unpredictable cinematic trip, Lynch's Dune holds a bizarre charm. Villeneuve's version simply can't match with its serious slow-mo ridden runtime. I'm interested in the characters in Lynch's. I barely feel a thing in Villeneuve's. And whilst, and I still don't understand why, I've revisited the original many times over the years, I've seen the Villeneuve 2021 version twice, and I really don't intend to watch it again. For me, it lacks the heart of the 1984 project, which you can tell was genuinely all about passion for everyone involved. Even though I'm struggling to put my finger on why I like the original so much. Perhaps it's because neither is faithful to the books, but at least Lynch's version mentions the mentats. Yes, it's messy. Yes, it makes little sense, but therein lies the appeal. It's an audacious assault on the senses, where floating pugs rub shoulders with menacing villains straight out of a heavy metal album cover. This version embraces absurdity, relishes campiness, and dares to be both unintentionally hilarious and strangely visually striking. It's not Frank Herbert's Arrakis by any stretch of the imagination, but it's an unforgettably wild ride fueled by pure unfiltered Lynchian strangeness. Furthermore, Lynch's Dune holds immeasurable value as a cult classic. The mangled plot, over-the-top theatrics, and questionable special effects have fueled decades of so bad it's good midnight screenings and passionate, albeit ironic, fandom. Its uniqueness is, paradoxically, its greatest strength. Villeneuve is all precision, visually beautifully, glorious in a bland kind of way, like someone has taken a ruler, compass and sterile architect tools as an approach. But it lacks something and is very similar to how I feel about Blade Runner 2049, where I was bored. Lynch's version might not be a faithful adaptation, but it stands as a monumental example of visionary filmmaking gone absolutely bonkers. The cinematic equivalent of a sandworm bursting unexpectedly from the dunes. Shocking, a little scary and impossible to ignore. Finally, you might appreciate Lynch's willingness to sacrifice source fidelity for his unique vision. It's a radical reinterpretation, a funhouse mirror reflection of Herbert's work. While this approach infuriates some fans, it attracts those who enjoy seeing familiar material filtered through an unhinged, auteur lens. Lynch's Dune isn't about understanding Arrakis, it's about basking in glorious visual chaos, a testament to the power of cinematic ambition when divorced from traditional expectations. So put on your still suit, grab some popcorn, and let the spice flow as you surrender to the wonderful absurdity of David Lynch's Dune. And that's all this videographer has time for today, and I'll see you in the next one.